So I'll just refer to my notes and so yeah, let's have a look at Ovation Pro then. That's the first thing. So this is Ovation Pro as it's installed for the first time as a blank copy. As you can see, we've got across the top, we've got the button bar. Can everybody see the mouse pointer, by the way? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we've got the button bar across the top. We've got the toolbox down the side, and we've got the info palette at the bottom. And that's the main points of it. Now, it is highly configurable, and you can customize it. You can change the buttons across the top. You can change the key. The hotkey sequences, you can customize them and add more and add other things. And you can add applets, which extend the features. So if I just do a menu over there and go to the applets menu, that shows you the applets that are installed and on the basic system. There are plenty of applets that come with Ovation Pro, and let's just show some of them. They're the ones that come in the zip file. And of course, Ovation Pro is freely available now from Pling's store or David Pilling's website, davidpilling.com/ovationpro/opr.html. So it's available for everybody to play with and grab. Okay, so that's Ovation Pro as it stands. I'll now show my Ovation Pro. Okay, that's my Ovation Pro. So as you can see, a little bit more customized. Hold on, I keep getting just bear with me. I keep getting the Zoom thingy popping up. Right. Okay, so as you can see, lots more buttons across the top. And the buttons are sort of editable. You can, if I can remember the key sequences, you can drag things around. I think a control. Oh no, that's wrong one. No, wrong one again. Sorry. That's just, you can add more rows. I think it's is it Control Alt? You can drag things around. You can move them, customize the way you want them, edit them. If you want to save them, once you've got the positions and the ones you want, if you go to the macros, sorry, I'll try and, I very rarely know where things are on the menus, and I tend to use the buttons and hotkey sequences I've set up a lot. So yeah, if you go to MISC macros, that opens the macros window, and that at the moment is showing the button macros, and they're all the buttons that I've got set up and what they do. You can create your own, you can sort of edit them. There's lots that come predefined. You can switch them on and off with the little tick option there. And then if you're happy with where everything's lined up and what you've got, you would click save, and it'll save and remember the positions. There's also a way of editing the key macros. So you can set a new hotkey and get it to do something. These macros use and are part of the built-in script language, which you don't have to know how to use, but it can sort of help, and you can do some very, very useful things with it. So if I look at this one here, I've got Control-Shift keypad full stop, and I've got that programmed to do a time string and type in basically a timestamp. So on the patterns and the books, I often do a timestamp, and each one is sort of recorded. So when people sort of say, "Oh, I'm having trouble with this knitting pattern," we can actually tell which number, which date stamp it was. So if I just press Shift Control full stop, it gives me a timestamp. And obviously you can set up as many as you like of them. And that's the basics. So what have I got in me? Yeah, so I'll now open the applets menu on my system. And as you can see, there's a lot more applets in there. Some of them are standard ones, but there's a lot of my custom ones in there. Okay, so yeah, it's where I'm up to. Right. Sorry, I'm just referring to my notes. Right, so I'm just going to quit that and reset my button bar so I can get back to where I was. So I can run through some of these buttons. There's a save button, which if the document's already been saved, it will just save it to the same path. There's a save as, which obviously is the standard save as window. There's an export, so you can export the text, or as the DDL file, which is its own internal text representation of the document. There's document choices. There's lots of others. The printer, there's some I'll skip for now. Colors, you can define colors in the document. I've got ones for editing the chapters, creating chapters, adding. This one is for adding pages, so you can add pages, delete pages. These are all available from the menus, but I just get to know them and it becomes sort of muscle memory, and I sort of just get so used to working with it, I know where to click usually. There's things called palettes, which are the little pop-up windows. So we can have a page palette, which tells us which page we're on, and we can jump to different pages. There's a color palette for selecting colors. That's one of mine. I'll come back to that later. That's the style palette, which is open here. That gives you all the document styles and an easy way to click on them and apply them to text. We've just got a load of others. I'll not go through all of them because we'll be here all night just on that. But let's start off and let's just chuck in some text. So as you can see, it's as standard. It comes A4 page, 10mm margins. You can customize that and change all that, but that's the sort of standard setup. And you can see that as I've dropped in the text, it just creates the pages necessary and extends to how many pages it needs to take that text. So it's very much like a standard any other sort of word processor type system, but it's more than that. It's more of a desktop publishing system, but it sort of does take a bit of getting used to how to sort of make it work in a different way. If I go over to the toolbox, the second one down creates a frame, so we can drag out a frame, and that's movable around, and we can drop text into that or type into that, and so on. And that is what's known as a local frame, because it's local to that page. We can have multiple local pages. Local frame on the page. We can have multiple frames, and then we can actually. There's actually if you actually click the frame tool with the adjust, it will allow you to make a new frame, but then keep the tool active so you can just keep making others till you go back to the selector tool. Okay, so let's select all that, I'm just going to cut that. So we've got our local frame. I'm going to paste that text back into there. And of course, it gets to the end of the frame and says, oh, I can't fit any more text in. So it shows you a little black arrow saying that there's text overflowing. We can go to the link tool there and we can link frames together and we can drag a line and say that one links to that one goes to there. And we can flow our text across our frames. We can even delete those and change the order. So if we think, oh, actually, we want something else, we can change the order that they flow. And that's the basic. So let's sort of look at styling it a little bit differently. So I'm going to start again and drop that text back in. So that frame that we see there, just reduce the scaling a little bit. That text there is, oh, I should say, yeah, one thing I do like to have active is this area around the side known as the paste area. And if we just go to the view options, you can see the pasteboard is ticked there, and that actually shows you some space around the edges. If we take that off, you can see it just shows you the page. But when you've got a lot of buttons, you have to then keep scrolling across the top to get to the new buttons that you've put up there. So I always like to, I also have a button for that. Oh no, that's the wrong one. That one. So yeah, I always like that because for a lot of my work, I would like to maybe do some little notes at the side if I need to make a note of something. In the books, when we do like a change or an errata or a new version, I'll perhaps sometimes put the text in there of the old version and then make the changes there. So we've got a reference of what changed and when. I put the date stamp in there. But let's see if we can make this a little bit different. So we want to make it look more like a nice document. So if we go down to page, we can open the master pages. So this frame is a master frame on the master page. And the way Ovation Pro works is that you get a whole master page per new chapter. So if you create another chapter, you get a new master page in the master document. So once we've opened this, we can actually position that text. We can maybe put a frame there, and anything that gets put on the master page will appear on the main page of that chapter. So in there, we can perhaps put in MISC insert page number. So let's just that a bit bigger. We might want to do now I've got this quite small there at the moment, but so as we close off the master document, it then alters it in our main document, and oh, why is our page number not showing? What did I do? Oh yeah, there it is. You can see it alters it on every page now. So that's looking more like a useful document with page numbers and such like. Okay. So I'll start showing what have I got in there? Oh no, that's just the same one. Right. Okay. So just refer to my notes. I'm going off notes here, so I've lost a bit where I'm up to. Okay, yeah, there was something that I was gonna mention there. Um, Let me just open. That's one I did the other day as my test one. Okay, so something that comes up a lot that people get a bit confused with Ovation Pro. Um, oh, actually, before I do that, let me just go back to the master page. Okay, so this page here, sorry, this frame on the master page um, is our sort of main text frame, and that's set to auto link. So you can see that it's actually been created like we did before by linking frames, but if you link it to itself, it says it's about to create an auto chain. And what that means is that anything in that gets dropped into that frame here will automatically add a new page when it flows through onto like more text that can fit in that frame. So that's why that's doing that, because it's set to auto link. But something that confuses a lot of people that are new to Ovation Pro is trying to sort of add and delete pages. So if I go to page, no, wrong one. So normally I'd do it up there. I'll do it up from my normal link because I can find it quicker. No, I've done that one wrong as well. Sorry. So delete page. So I'm going to delete the last two pages. So pages 4 to 5, I'm going to delete. Okay, delete. But when you look back down, they're back there again. And that seems to confuse a lot of people. You get a lot of people sort of on the mailing list sort of having trouble with that. And that's because it's that auto link frame that it knows that you've deleted the pages, but you've got so much text in that flow that it's got to create a new page, or two new pages in this case, to put that text somewhere. Um, and it's sort of because of that that I often don't use the auto link pages on the master document, and I actually sort of create them by hand in the pages as I go and link manually between local frames. Um, another feature. Let me just turn the guidelines back on. Another feature to help you lay out documents, a guideline. So if we turn the ruler on there, and we can see we've got now rulers appearing, we can click into the ruler and it puts a guideline, and we can do both horizontal and vertical ones. And if you've got in the choices set to snap to guides, it will allow you to easily create frames that sort of snap to those. And if you've got big documents where you might have columns or positions that you want to keep, it's quite useful to put those on the master page, on the master document side of things, so that they appear on every page. At the moment, I've just done those on local, so that's just on that page. But if I decided to do it onto the master document, you can see as I close that, they now appear on every page in the chapter. So I use those a lot to help me sort of lay out a book and a big project. So I'll show you now. I think that was it. Yeah, so I'll show you now an example of that last book that I was showing you, Stitching Time Volume 3. It's there. Right. So when I do a project, I tend to have a naming system. So I've got SITV3, which is my Stitching Time Volume 3, and then I number them. So I've got a 1A, start with 1A and 1B and so on, but I sometimes put extra text at the end so I know, but because that always starts in sequence, I basically increment that sort of number as I go. And I've always got a back reference to what I've done before. So if something goes wrong or I mess something up, or sometimes Ovation Pro might crash, which it does sometimes, it gives me a way of going back to not necessarily the last document that I've saved, but the last version, really. So it's my way of doing a version control. So this first one, 1A, this is showing the book layout basically, and this is really how I start with the sort of master page layout. So we're looking at this. Oh, perhaps I should show you before I start on that. I create this document because this is going to be a book with facing pages. If you go to the menu, the icon bar menu of Ovation Pro, and click New for a new document, instead of just opening up usually with an A4, you can sort of select the page sizes. You can type them in. If you select Other, you can select your page size there. Check whether you want to run it horizontally and portrait or landscape. And whether it's got a master frame document. So that basically creates your auto-linked frame automatically. So normally I would turn that off. I would say, oh, wrong one, A4. This is extended. I've got an applet that I've got that actually gives you a lot more pages. You can customize and create your own pages. The applet sort of gives you a way of editing and adding more and things. So I would start with an A4, as in this case, and we go double-sided, and we're just going to let it sort of go mirror for now because I'm not going to put any default master frames on. So at the moment, that's ready to start creating the document. And obviously, it doesn't do very much at the moment. So I would then start creating the guidelines and the grid and the layout that I'm going to be using. So I would usually start by building the layout, and you can see this now has 2 pages, and I've actually done that by going up to there and saying insert a second page after page 1 and creating a second page. And then I sort of start laying out where everything's going to sit. So we're looking at it in a facing pages spread. So this is like looking as if you've opened the book up. Give me a second. I've lost my Zoom window now. Oh, there we get it from there. Oh, sorry. So I've just gone back to the other camera. So yeah, I don't know if you can see this as well as the screen sharing. So that's looking at as if you're looking at the book open and you're seeing facing pages. So I can zoom up to the bottom. You can see that I've got our little Knitting Lady logo, which is our sort of company brand logo in the bottom corner, and the page number. And then across, we've got a Stitching Time Volume 3 title of the book there on the left-hand page. And then across to the right-hand side page, we've got the page 2 and the Knitting Lady again. And then I've got all these guide frames set up. So the way I normally work is I create the first guideline on the page boundary. I've got one at 3mm outside it because that's for our bleed edge. When you're doing commercial printing, any images that go up to the edge of the page need to go past that by 3mm, and that's then sliced off when the books are created, and that's known as the bleed area. I've got basically two for the first column, and then two there for a second column, and then it sort of mirrors on the other side. But in this case, the mirroring is actually the same in the fact that I've got an 18mm border basically to the edge of the book, and the same in the center of the book. It's exactly even and symmetrical. Some publications you might give more space in the center, and that's, in publishing terms, that's known as the grind. And when the books are actually manufactured, we go over to there. Basically, they're done in such a way. Hope you can see that they're done in such a way that they're sort of folded into signatures. So they're normally printed on a big press, might be 16 pages on one sheet. That sheet is folded up into such a way to get in the right page order, and then the whole block of paper is run through a machine, and that edge there is literally ground off. It's a bit different actually with hardback books, but it's definitely true for softback and paperback. That's my camera. The light's not good there. Let's have a look on this. Not the best one. Good colour. Yeah, so at this edge here, it's literally ground away. It's put into a machine, it runs over some grinding wheels, and it scuffs all the paper up, and that then holds the glue, and the glue attaches to the rough edge of the paper, and then the cover is sort of squeezed onto the hot glue. So this area in the center of the two pages is often referred to as the grind, and in some layouts you might sort of give a little bit extra space in there to allow for that, and to allow for sort of opening the book up and not having your text run too close to that spine where it's hard to actually read. You sometimes get that with novels where you sort of end up breaking the book because you're trying to open it up to read the bit in the middle. Nowadays, I don't tend to give a different amount of space there, mainly because when we also do a printed book, we also do an ebook version. And on an ebook, people find it a bit strange when they're flicking from pages that literally the text is jumping left to right as you jump through if you leave that extra space. So it's customary now to sort of, if you're sort of doing it that way, just leave enough space, or you sort of arrange with the with the sort of printers that they're going to deal with that, or add extra space in there if they need to. They usually do anyway when they come to impose it onto the big sheets that they're going to print from. So that's the start of a layout. A lot of this is sort of dictated from our house style, because our patterns use a very similar layout to most of the books. All the styles that we use for the text tend to be sort of now a house style. So usually there's some sort of design consideration already there when I get started. And on some projects, some books, we might decide that we're going to do it differently, and that's all decided pretty much before I get to this point of laying out. So I'll have a play, and if it's something different, we'll go through some experiments, but I'll sort of work on that as we go along. So yeah, these are the actual pages, but if I open the master page, they're basically all just done on the master page. Okay, you can see at the top, I've actually got some extra. That's why I like this pasteboard on because I actually get room to add extra frames that give me some help when I'm viewing at small sizes. So I always like to have the page number nice and big. So even when I'm sort of showing like lots of pages on screen at once, I can see even if I've scrolled down, I can't see that number there, but I've got a reference nice and clearly. If I'm deciding which pages to print or proof, I can see clearly that I can print pages 1 and 2, and I know which ones I'm dealing with. So that's quite a good tip to actually help while you're sort of working on a document. Also, I put the chapter and the page number also at the top. And I also, you can see that I've coloured that in a sort of red colour. As I create new chapters, I sort of give them a different colour. So again, when I'm scrolling through, I can see where the chapters change quite easily without sort of needing to read closely the content on the page. So the next sort of process would be to start laying out some local frames of how it's going to look. Like I say, a lot of this is sort of dictated from the house style and sort of projects we've done before. It's been many years of sort of fine tuning the way I do things now. So this is sort of the start of a layout. I've got a frame there. That's going to be the pattern title. So if I just find the start of a pattern, don't know if you can see that on the small video. So yeah, the pattern title will be up there in that frame, and then it sort of flows across. There's a little, I have a little tiny frame there that really does nothing, but that takes a carriage return, basically a blank line, which I like because I tend to try and keep the integrity of the data, so that if it's exported as text, it's all correctly sort of laid out with nice spaces and stuff, even if it's plain text and all the styling's disappeared. Yeah, and it sort of flows frame to frame. You can see here that we've got one flowing to a frame that's off the page, this one here. And that's because in our patterns, and we sort of, the way I tend to work now is that all the patterns before going into a book will be laid up as a single pattern, which after the book's been out for a while, we tend to release the patterns as single patterns because there's a certain amount of people that'll happily spend, you know, £38 on the book. But for some people, if they just want one pattern and aren't willing to spend that money, after a while we do start selling the sort of patterns individually, and they tend to be PDFs. So I tend to start the layout with the PDF, and then when it's actually all done in that, I'll import it into the book layout. But this frame here is because in the knitting instructions, there is a set of abbreviations of what all the symbols mean. And in the book, we just have one page of those at the front of the book. So we don't actually need them on every single pattern because it just takes up more space. But to keep that integrity of the data, I just sort of flow it into a frame off the page that's never seen. And then it comes back down to this next frame, and this will be more info, and then we get I don't know whether you can really see that. You'll see it when I show it on screen. We get sort of the knitting information. There's like sizing information. There's a schematic, and then we get into literally the instructions for how you're going to knit the thing with your knits and purls and all your instructions. So this is what it looks like as a blank with no data in, as a blank sort of layout. And when I've sort of got that how I want, I will then actually sort of start putting some pattern data in. So again, we're still on the facing pages to see the spread. And you can see now we've got some titles in. We've got our styles now showing the text in a particular style. So we've got that one as the pattern title. I'll zoom up a bit there. We've got sort of the red headings. We come through to the text. We've got like the subheadings, and I've got charts. I've got the sizing information up there. Again, lots and lots of styles. You can see that the base style is a size chart. We've got different styles. We've got this bit there is the to fit. Everything's done in styles. Everything's done so that you don't have to remember what the font was. Once it's set up, you just apply it to the text. I have lots of, again, you can see over on the style palette, I've got lots of key shortcuts that apply a lot of these. And it really becomes muscle memory. A lot of them, I can just hold the control and just do F9, F10, F11, F8, and I can go through a control minus, puts the bold in, all that. And I can sort of, because I'm doing this sort of every day, all day long, I can style up the documents fairly quickly and it becomes sort of done without really much thought. Again, it's just like the muscle memory sort of taking over. So you can see we've got some pictures in there. These are low quality. I'll go on about pictures in a bit, but that shows me what I've sort of got as my layout. So I'll do a few test layouts, make sure we're correct. Maybe do another one so we can see another. And someone might notice the name of this pattern. That wasn't it wasn't actually named after you, Andrew. I'm sorry to say. It was actually Canon Rawnsley, who was it might be a relation, who was one of the founders of the National Trust. I don't know if it happens to be a relation or not, but that's where that was named after. So yeah, you can see this is a layout of another pattern. And once I know everything's sort of right and working, I can then start building it up into the full book, and we sort of start adding all the patterns and all the data in. Have I missed anything out? Oh yeah. While we're on the sorry about this, I'm just trying to, when I'm talking about layout, I've got some other bits to show you. Yeah, while we're laying out a pattern and getting that sort of layout sort of finalized and tweaked, I have lots of useful applets that help me deal with things. Actually, I might turn that on off and go back to just the local frames, so you've not got all the pictures getting in the way. So one very useful, I think it was my first applet. I contacted, I mean, to explain some of this, I've had a fantastic sort of working relationship with David Pilling over the years. You know, doing this as a sort of commercial printer, I would often say, "Oh, I wish it could do that. I wish it could do this." And quite often, the next morning, I'd get into work, and after a brief discussion, there'd be a new version of me of Ovation Pro run image ready to try out, and he would add lots of things that I asked for. So I've been very privileged to sort of have that you would never sort of expect to get that from Adobe if you were sort of working on Mac software. But one of the first things I wanted to do was, as we click in a frame at the bottom of I'll just move that off the icon bar. At the bottom of the window, we can see we've got the information palette, the info pal. And it tells us the position basically of this frame that's highlighted. So we can see it's at 18 mil, it's 174 mil wide, and you can see the positions there. And as we move, we can move that down, and it all updates. And one of the first features, as it were, of the script language that I asked him to add was a way to sort of grab that information and be able to change it basically and just record it within the script and within an applet. So one of the first applets that I created was called paste pos, which is basically paste in position. So if I hold on, I've got that link, so I can't cut it. But if I delete the links there, if I get that and if I cut that to the clipboard and it disappears, I can paste it in with a V, obviously like that. But if I paste it in, it should appear on the bottom there, paste text frame in position. So it still shows the way it works is because it doesn't sort of doesn't get into the workings of Ovation Pro. It just sort of knows that when you're about to paste something, you click where you want it, which page you want it on, and then it moves it into the position that it's got recorded. So that was a very useful starting sort of applet that allowed me to sort of move something from, say, the main pages to the master page, and sort of once I've got that, I can then move all these to the master document and get them in position so that I can sort of recall them each time, such like that. Then another one working off the same principle was nudge palette. And what this does, you can just have it showing as a little tiny arrows. And if I sort of click, it moves it down. I've got this set very, very finely. I've got 0.1 of a millimeter movement, but if I press the shift, it will actually move 1 millimeter. Okay, and if I just extend that palette wider, we've got a little bit more going on here. You can see a normal click will move it that distance. If you press shift, it moves that distance. You can alter that. So you could say, let's just do that as 10. And then when we shift, we then move 10 mil. So you can see it's moving down, up, across, diagonally. And that's very useful. But then we can also, and I do use this an extreme amount of times in a day, you can just affect which side of the frame. If you imagine that little square there is the frame, any movements now on these are going to move this top and right-hand edge. So if I just go move to the left, again, I'll do this using the 10 mil shift so you can see it clearly. Hopefully you can see that's just moving that right-hand edge of that frame. And again, if I move a vertical, it's going to move up the top. And then I can switch to which corner or which side I want. And you can control which edges are being like nudged around. And again, I use that a lot. I tend to use it if I'm positioning something and I want to just move the whole frame, instead of like necessarily just picking it up and moving and letting go, that doesn't sort of update the page till you've left go. Whereas I can do it very fine amounts and line things up to quite a precise detail. There's other features for laying out that's very useful. There's one here that's not one of mine. This is somebody else's, although I have actually customized this a little bit. There's multiple clipboards in Ovation Pro. So again, what I tend to use a lot is once I've got my sort of layout and I'm just going to go down a little bit with the size. I've got this basically represents, this layout represents what's going to hold the data for one knitting pattern. So I've basically got the first page is going to be the title. It'll have a big picture in the background. So there's a big frame there. Then we've got these grey coloured boxes to denote the sort of information side of things, sizing, what wool and yarn it uses. And once I've got all these, I will literally sort of select everything on that page and copy it to say clipboard number 1, I'll copy all these and copy them to clipboard number 2, and so on. And you can cut and copy and paste. And that allows me to, every time I'm doing a new pattern and I know that I need a minimum of sort of 8 new pages going in, I can literally sort of like paste everything on clipboard 1, which I know will be everything off that page, clipboard 2, clipboard 3, and so on. So I can sort of build up a sort of repository, as it were, of the layout as I start and putting lots and lots of patterns into the book. I've got another one similar to this idea of multiple clipboards. This isn't released yet. This is sort of still in development, although I've been using it quite some time. What this is an object positioner, and if you think of these writables here as being basically a copy of the values in the info palette, it's basically a multiple clipboard of these values. So if I use the adjust key, it fills them into whatever's that set. Clicking that on that one, I can do that. That one, I can do that. So on the columned text, I can sort of do that. I can also give them a bit of a background if I want to sort of refer to them, because you start getting a bit confused as you get lots of these and think, oh, so I know that sort of anything that's going to be in columns, I can just use like click on 4 and 5 and it will arrange them. So what this does, if I sort of move these and adjust these now and sort of completely change where they sit, it's a bit laggy on the NC, but there we go. Yeah, if I sort of click now with that one and click with the select button, it actually puts those figures back into the info pal and adjusts that frame to that position. So it gives me a sort of like clipboard of layouts of positions, and you can increase how many you need. You can extend it. You can actually do some comments. So I can do column 1 in there, just so as a reminder of what I'm doing. You can also apply, I've not quite finished all this yet, but it does actually work. You can actually apply key macros, so you can actually apply those to macros. So if I just close that up a bit so it's out of the way. I've already got them set up, even though it doesn't actually show in there yet. So if I do, I've got these on the keypad. So if I do a Shift Control 4, that uses whatever's recorded in 4. Shift Control keypad 5 there. So again, it's very useful. You can sort of create a brand new frame, and on that page, if I again just do 4, it'll put it into that position. So again, lots of things I've created because I just do layouts all day long, and I just need really sort of easy ways to sort of streamline what I'm doing. Jumped a bit there, right? Okay, so just close that off. Oh, where am I on with? Yeah, so we've got the pattern text in. So let's look at the print edition 1. This was actually what went to press. And you can see now this is the full book. It's title page, not the covers at this point. This is just the what they call the text, the inserts of the book. And this is basically it. So you can see that this is in like a faded yellow, 10% yellow here. That's sort of instantly telling me that this is chapter 1. I've got some information here that I've recorded just to, as I'm working, as a sort of notepad, scratch pad. And you can see there's a picture here. Now this one is actually with bleed, so this bleeds off the page. So you can see that and that guideline sort of show me where, and I always have the guidelines to show to the top. So I can easily see where the page actually is. And then this is 3mm bleed that bleeds off that's going to be trimmed. And they're the crop marks that are going to sort of be where the printers are actually going to sort of trim the book. And the page is going to be sort of cut off there. So this starts to sort of look like a real book. Okay, and then we've got the contents page, we've got the verso. Well, can just zoom up on this little bit there. We can see it's produced on Riscos. Gets a little, I like to tell people that it's done on Riscos. Not that most people who are buying our books actually know what I'm talking about whenever I say it, but
I was going to say, do you ever get any questions about that?
Once in a while, and if we talk, I tend to sort of like, not me. I don't do very many talks. It's Susan that does all the actual knitting talks and things, and she often mentions about the software I've written and the work I do. So you can see that we've got the sort of introductory pages about this book, some pictures, guidance, techniques, pattern support links. We've got sort of, these are the references to the original sort of vintage patterns that the patterns are sort of updated from. And a lot of work goes into the work that my wife does, because she'll take one of these sort of 1930s patterns, and these were all just to knit one size. And if you wanted to knit it bigger, you just had to know how to do that. But in this day and age, most sort of knitters want to be told exactly what to do. So a lot of effort goes into the resizing, multi-sizing, lots and lots of maths, lots of spreadsheets, all working out how it'll work, how you sort of replicate the certainly, if you see like this one, this has got sort of patterning, what we call fair isle or stranded coloured work. Lots of effort goes into trying making those work for bigger sizes. If you're knitting a jumper that's for and there's a lot of Americans in particular that tend to need big sizes. We get a lot of requests, so we go from sort of very small sizes right up to 60-inch chest sizes and things. So it does take a lot of effort and work to actually get the pattern sorted, and that's before I get the job of actually putting it together into book form. So you can see how the book is sort of progressing and what it looks like. Okay, well, what am I up to? Right, yeah, I suppose the next thing I've got to talk about really is pictures. That's a major part of a book like this. The book layout, it's, if I scroll right to the end, you can see we've got a 260-page book. There's 248 pictures in the book, which are in the form of either photos, charts, or other graphics. And they total 562 megabytes on disk space. That's a hell of a lot of data in there. And that's a hell of a lot more than Ovation Pro's dynamic area. So if you were sort of bringing those pictures into this document, you're not going to get them all in. You're going to run out of memory, and every time you add something else, it's going to say, no more memory and throw an error. So Ovation Pro has a few clever little features, and I'll go through this again. I don't know whether other people know about it, and it's a good tip if you're sort of doing sort of publications. But it has something called reference pictures and proxy pictures. And all these are set up as both reference and proxies. And I'll sort of start with another document just to show you exactly what that is. So I'm going to copy these to the RAM disk just for now. Going to get rid of that one for now. So I've got a completely blank document with just a single frame there. So let's have a look at how pictures work. So I'm just going to drag in this, let's just, you can see this picture. It's a 9 megabyte JPEG. And that's the picture. That's actually the one that we use for the end papers of the book. So which are the ones that go attached to the hardback cover there. So that's a 9 megabyte file or thereabouts. It's probably a little bit more. So if I drop that in a frame, just be very slow. Okay, so let's just save that. And that's what we've done is embed that picture. It's just loaded in and in the document itself. So let's just save that as embedded back to the RAM drive. You can see that the document now is 9 meg. While it's in memory, it's taking up 9 meg. We can actually see if we look in Ovation Pro's dynamic area, you can see the memory now has shot up to just enough to hold that, plus a little bit more, obviously, for all the data that's going on in Ovation Pro. And that's embedded. So that's just sort of literally dropped into a frame. But we're not going to get many of them into our document before we run out of space. So let's just try something else. Let's try referenced. So again, just opening up that same empty file. We're going to drag it in. But this time, before I leave go, I'm just going to press the Shift button. And it pops up a picture import dialog. So we're going to do a reference picture on this one. Okay. Yeah, basically looks the same, doesn't it? That's identical. Let's save as a reference picture. Now we can see, looking at the details on the drive, that actually that picture's in there, but when we save that file, it's only a 5K file. It's exactly the same as the empty one, pretty much. There's no storage of that picture is in there. And if we click in there, we can see that we can. Sorry, I shouldn't do that, should I? I know I've got shortcuts set up, and I just habit to do them. But if we go to picture, come across, we can go to reference, and that shows us a path of what is sort of loading in, where that picture lives, basically. And it's telling me that picture is there on the RAM drive. And that is really great because that means it's not actually taking up space on the document file when we save the file. So that's a good start. It keeps our document files down. Our disk space isn't sort of chunked up every time we make a new version of the document. But if we look at the memory again, we've still got all that picture actually in memory. So what happens is Ovation Pro loads the document, but then says, right, where's that picture? I'm going to load it from disk. It loads it into memory and it's in the document. Okay. So we need another way how to not take up all that space. So let's go again with our third one. And let's this time, as we drag in, we press the Shift key again and get that import. And we're going to say a proxy. And what a proxy image is a copy of that image, but usually you want to scale it down so it's a lot smaller and doesn't take up the memory space. So basically these control, if we do base, that's going to basically be the same resolution, but we can do divided by 2, so we can halve the resolution and we can reduce it each time, and we can go to like 8 times smaller. We can lower the color depth, so we could actually make it 8-bit per pixel. And if we OK that, we're going to see this now, I don't know whether you can see, it's a slightly different sort of coloration. Hopefully that shows. But that's a proxy image. So now let's save, that's a proxy and a ref, okay, referenced. Okay, now we can see that's that one. It's jumped up a little bit. We've got a 310K document. So we've not got that 9 megabytes in there. It's still referenced. So every time that document's loaded, when it wants to know where that document is, it's going to look for the reference and load that picture in there. But in memory, I don't think that's gone down, has it? It's not minimized the memory, but that actually isn't in memory now. All we're storing in memory and in the document is the low resolution version. Now, I've got, I say, lots of shortcuts, key like actions that I do to get to all these. So I'm just going to open that up again. So we can edit and change that proxy setting while, like, whenever there's a picture in there, and we can apply. We don't have to apply it as we drag it in. We can just take a picture that's there and apply it as a proxy. And we can see that the picture size is 9.15 megabytes, but this proxy is actually taking 304K. Now, it is saved in the document. The proxies are actually saved within the document, so they are sort of taking up the space when we save the file onto disk. But we can actually, if we reduce that that color down a bit, and if I just do that with the adjust key, so we keep the dialog open. Did that go? Yeah. We can see now that going down to 4 bits per pixel, we've taken it down to 153. Can even go down to 2 bits per pixel, and you can see we just sort of get a black and white sort of representation of the image. But what that's doing is allowing us to actually really reduce that that sort of size of data that's been stored in the document. And what Ovation Pro does, when it comes to print, it gets to this page and says, right, let's print this page. Oh, wait a minute, we've got a reference picture. It loads the real 9 meg image back into its memory, prints that, and then discards that and moves on to the next page that's printing it, and does that for every reference picture. So there is a bit of an overhead on printing time and obviously disk activity. So it's probably not something you want to be doing on an SD card based system just for speed, but also, you know, obviously the life of your SD card is going to suffer. But it does allow, you know, I'll leave that open a minute. It does allow for a big project with lots of big pictures in to sort of all be in one document and be printed from one document. Okay, I think I've covered all that. Yeah, the other real good issue with proxy images, and you can actually see quickly if what the real picture looks like. You can actually get it to load that picture back into memory and view it. And if you sort of go to the view options and turn off the use proxies, that will now show all the images. It's taking its time across VNC, but that'll show all the images back into their full quality again. Again, I've got some shortcuts and things that do that for me, so I can just hit keys, and I've got some buttons that reproduce it here. That one switches there. That one turns all images off completely. But one of the main advantages of this is that if you've got a lot of JPEGs in a document, when you're scrolling through that document, if those JPEGs are in the full form, they have to be decompressed to a sprite on the fly as you're scrolling, and that takes a lot of time, and it really sort of gets slow to scroll pages, and it has to update. So actually using proxies is a great way. So if we look at back to our print edition one, you can see actually resizing the windows all the time is a bit of a pain, and I am actually partway through an applet to remember the position on screen that your document was saved at. I've not quite finished it yet, but again, that was some of my applets have only really been a possible because some years ago David Pilling did sort of give me a copy of the source code, so I've actually been able to sort of write some applets now that like compile against the rest of the code. And I have made sort of this is a custom build basically. The sources are available online. Others can get to them and play around if they so wish. So yeah, I do have some sort of bits of my Ovation Pro that does a little bit more than other people's. Just because I get sort of things that I do so often that I need it to do that I just think, oh, how can I get this to work? So for example, if I just open up that reference dialogue again, I've actually done a little button there that actually opens the folder of where that sits, because I always find that's a really useful thing to actually like just look at where the rest of the pictures are and where it's stored. Where was I going with that? You forgotten. So yeah, as you sort of oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, the turning on the proxies is something I've just added as a macro and as a script language function to allow me to make it into a shortcut, really. Yeah, so as we get scrolling through this, now it's not going to scroll great because we're obviously across VNC, and I don't know what it's then going to be like across Zoom. It might be quite terrible. But even these sort of JPEGs are all sort of like they're all like low quality to look at, and they're all sort of scrolling quite well. I don't know how this will show up, but if I turn on, you can see how slow that is sort of to replot each picture. And if I try scrolling now, it's really sort of laggy because each one has to try and sort of update. Yeah, it's not really responding at all there. So yeah, these images are quite slow. So it takes an age sometimes. So actually using the proxy images is just a real nice way because you can scroll simply. You can still get access to the information on the picture. So you can still see what it is and the resolution. So as I was saying before, there's the pictures in this book come to a total of 562 megabytes, and that's after they've all been optimized and downsized to 300 dpi. They start off often much bigger off our camera. We've had for a number of years now a Canon camera that produces, I think, 24 megapixel images. Uncompressed, that comes to about 60 to 70 megabytes if you convert it into a sprite. Usually around, I think at an A4, I think they're about, 10, are they? Or yeah, 5. That one's 5.5 as a JPEG. And I do tend to use JPEGs throughout the system. The whole workflow is kept as RGB while it's in this state. I don't use sort of CMYK images. It's all done as RGB, and that's basically because we also convert and make into eBooks, which again, you don't want a PDF ebook as a CMYK. You want it all just for most readers. You just want an RGB. When it comes to printing, obviously they're made into CMYK, but I'll cover that in a little bit. So yeah, all these are referenced pictures and proxies. The charts, I don't tend to proxy them. These are all draw files. But again, they are referenced. Oh no, that one's not actually. Oh, see. Yes, I think when I did the first print book, they weren't. We were on a time pressure to get it all finished, and we had a slot booked in at the printers to get it printed. And yeah, we ended up staying till about 4 in the morning in the office here and trying to get it uploaded and sent to the printers for the first thing Monday morning, so it could hit the slot and get printed. So yeah, it was sort of slightly rushed in places just to try and get all this to them. But since then, I think I've sort of referenced everything. I've got another little applet that I've written called Lister, and you might just see on the icon bar there a little picture of Lister from Red Dwarf, which is the logo, and that basically saves the document as a DDL and then searches through and allows me to list things that I find useful. So I can get a list of reference pictures through this. And if I look there, that gives me all the pictures in the document and their path name. Okay, so that's reference pictures. Now, there's a little warning I need to give about reference pictures. And that is, let's close that off. Let's go back to one of these, right? That was a proxy and the ref. Okay. So that's showing the proxy, but it's referencing to that on the RAM drive, that file there. Now, the problem that you can get with obviously using reference pictures is what happens when that picture no longer becomes available. In other words, if you've moved it, if you've deleted it, renamed it, whatever, it's gonna throw up a problem. So let's open that one again. That was our proxy and ref there. Okay, that's opened okay. And it's opened because it's got the proxy image in there. But if we try and view options, let's take off the proxies. It throws an error saying file not found. It has a little wobble and it doesn't actually close the document. It minimizes it up here somewhere, top corner of your screen. But one thing it does do is mess up your position of where your toolbox and info bar are sort of sat. Sorry, info palette. And it messes up the reference, and that happens a few times with Ovation Pro. And it's one of those bugs that hasn't actually been tracked down to figure out what happens. But that's one way of actually always solving it. Recreating it. So I am going to sort of at some point look through the code and see if I can and find out a way of sort of stopping that. So what happens again is as soon as I open that document back up, it closes it and moves it back to the corner again. And it keeps doing that, and you might get sort of some weird effects where it just keeps going around circling, and you think, oh, this is gonna last forever. It does usually stop there. Now there is a way to get around this. Again, it's helpful if you've got the button bar set for it, but if you turn pictures off, which is that one, or if you open just enough of the document, depending on where that picture is sat in the frame, if you come down, where are we? Sorry, view, options, turn off pictures there, which I've just done with the button. It does allow us now to actually open that back up, move these back into where they should be. And because that picture is hidden, it allows us to open the document back up, and we can actually then set that reference to where it should be. So we can actually put the new name in there and say, because I've renamed it X, is that gone? Yeah. Turn pictures back on. It's really slow across the VNC. And we can see we've fixed it. But obviously on a big document, that's a major problem. If suddenly you've moved the pictures, then you're going to have big problems. And this is something I have actually come across quite a lot of. over the years, I've upgraded different machines and moved filing systems. I've gone from ADFS to IDFS, SCSI FS, now MVMEFS. And every time you do that, all those references are sort of broken. You're hardwiring that path name into your document. And that's a bit of a problem, really. That's not good. Every programmer knows that sort of things hardwired are a pain that's going to get you one way or another at some point in the future. There is a way to actually get around that. We can use a reference of location. So if we use file path, Ovation Pro knows that that's basically the file name of the document. So to get to a picture in the same folder and the same directory as your document, you basically have to do that. So you're basically saying the path of the file that it's saved, of the document, but upper level, but which is basically back into the same directory, and that's where you're going to say that's where that lives. So that's now sort of referenced from where the picture lives, where the document's saved. It's now going to look for the picture, that name, that file name in the same folder. So that's quite a good way. But on a big job, you have to do that by hand, and that's an incredibly long-winded way to do them all as sort of references. So I've created a system that I've developed over the years that's sort of worked for me. That I actually produce a folder that I'm going to stick everything in and make it into a application directory by sticking a pling at the front, basically having a set of obey files that basically set a path name, a system variable path, to that folder or a folder within that folder. So it actually sort of looks for one called refs. And when the run file is run, basically it opens that filer window with that path name. If you can see the title there, it opens it with that. And when you drag something into Ovation Pro, it just, let's get something. If I drag that in again with the shift held down, wake up, there we go. It actually uses that path name and remembers that and just links. So long as that folder has been sort of seen and run using my obey files there, it knows where the pictures are. And that's really quite handy, because what that allows me to do is say, take copies, move them onto a different filing system, maybe move them onto a NAS drive. And I can just double click that folder wherever it lives, and everything just works. It also means that I can back up that folder and have a sort of new one. If things change, pictures might change, I can keep a complete backup of it, and know that I can just go back to an old document and click that version of the sort of referenced images, as I call them, and know that it's just going to open up that new folder. So that's how everything is referenced, even sort of draw files and artworks and everything. So that's how I've sort of built my system over the years. And each book project has its own little sort of reference picture sort of folder, and everything lives in there. Okay, what's next on the list? Right. Okay, while we're looking at pictures, I'll try and give an example. I don't know if anybody noticed on that print edition one, we've got, again, we're looking at the page spreads here. And So we've got double pages. You can see there we've got page 2 and page 3. If I scroll, you can see that one there. Page 4 and 5. We've got what is in effect a page spread, as it would normally be called. And that's a picture that goes across 2 pages. And there's others in the book. You can see like that one, that's a full page spread. So that's one picture that goes across both pages of as our view. And you can see, again, in the book, on the other camera, you can see that's what they look like. They're actually on separate sheets of paper, separate pages, but the one picture across both pages, and that, let's show you making one of those, because that's quite something that takes a bit of thinking about. Okay, which one am I going to demonstrate? Yeah, let's do that on the master page one. Okay, because that's not got any pictures on. So this is a bit of a tip for people who want to do some bit more creative layout. So we've got our back to our sort of empty document basically, and let's put a picture across those 2 pages. So we'll go to make a new frame on that second frame tool. Let's do it within the boundary. So we're going to do right across, and we're going to go across the page, and oh dear, it won't let us. Ovation Pro doesn't actually allow it. It won't allow one frame to run across 2 pages. It doesn't have any concept of that. A frame has to be on a page. So to be able to do this easily, when I design my layouts, and you can see all these guide lines here that are sort of creating my columns and my positions, when I define the pages from the start on the master page, I actually extend those. So if I turn off facing pages now, so this is now looking at the document just as a single page, and it'll scroll through a page at a time. You can see here over on the right, I've actually got some extra little frames here on the pasteboard that aren't really doing anything, but are there to give me some guidance of layout. And these ones here mimic the frame positions as if we were looking at that adjoining page. We've got one at the far side there that represents the A4 page of that second page, and that one is the 3mm bleed. So if you can imagine, as we were before looking at the 2 pages, we're now looking at one, but we've got these lines and guides to help us. So what we can do is imagine that being right across the 2 pages. Okay, let's find a picture. I've got one listed on my notes here that's so these are all, again, the book pictures, all the photos and charts. And we're going to do Bobby's socks, and we've got number 7 is a landscape picture. So let's drop that into that frame. Actually, we should have done, okay, I just embedded it. I didn't actually do it as a reference at this point, but I'm going to give it make it into a proxy, because it's nearly 9 meg, and just to speed up when we're dealing with things, I'm going to give it a proxy image, and that proxy now is only 37K. So it should make life a little bit easier. So we can take this as being how it's going to look across 2 pages. If I double click into there, I'm going to reposition it. If it will, come on. It's very slow on and that helps. I didn't actually have proxy images turned on for viewing, so we were trying to move the full one. So, oh, that looks horrible. That's all stripy and funny when I move that on over the VNC. window. So, okay, so I'm going to put the shoes basically on either side. I'm just going to enlarge the picture so it sort of fills up the bleeds off to the edges of the frame. Just going to move that. So let me just see if I can highlight that line. Don't know whether you can see that against the picture. That red line is going to be where the fold is, where the document sort of is folded and the two pages come together. So let's just move that in line. Oh, I think I moved the frame then, didn't I? That wasn't good. Okay, well, we do have F8 on here, which is a bit of an exciting thing. If you're used to using impression, we can actually undo things. So let's just move that. I'm just using the arrow keys there to nudge that along. Okay, so we want it to look something like that. So we can see that I'm just going to make it slightly better quality just because it looks a little bit grainy there. Okay, slightly better. Hope that's showing up okay, by the way, on screen. Okay, so if I turn the pages back into facing pages again, which is I've got a shortcut little button there. Well, that's sort of not what we want. We want that to be filling up that other side. But if we take a copy of that, scroll to our next page. Actually, let's bring that window to the front, get rid of the file windows. I'm going to paste that in position, which I've got as Shift Control V. There. Now let's see what that looks like. Oh no, that's not right, is it? So what we need on this page 2 being a right-hand page spread, I've got a copy of the column positions as if it was looking at a left-hand page. So if I now pick up that frame and shift that across to match, and then it's going to start scrolling to there, that's put that in the position of the other side of the page. So turning on the facing pages now, we actually get that same image in two separate frames. So we've got the frame on page 1 showing that half and the frame on page 2 showing that half. And one feature that Ovation Pro actually has, which is really quite useful, is if a picture is loaded into the document, either referenced or however it might be, proxied or whatever, if you copy that to multiple pages, multiple times, it still actually only takes one reference of that data in the document. So you can actually paste that picture 100 times and the document size doesn't actually increase. That 9 megabyte file will only be in there once. And also, because it knows that that's a copy of that one, if I change the proxy settings on that first one, it actually changes them on the second one because it knows it's the same picture. You've copied it. It knows you've copied it, so it knows it's the same reference, the same data, and it's great if you want to apply sort of the proxy images to all of them that you've copied throughout the document. So again, on the likes of the little page number image at the bottom, there's actually a left and a right, so there's actually 2 in the document, but they're copied all so many times that actually the document knows that it's the same image and just reproduces it without taking up more like memory space and file space. When it's printed, obviously it loads them in and that page is printed and then they're discarded. So yeah, that's proxy, page spreads. So hope that's useful to know. Okay, so I don't know how long we've been running, quite a long time, haven't we? Yeah, I'll try and speed up a bit. Obviously the big issue that most people also need to know about is printing. How do I go about printing these things? Well, I print to PostScript. I use the PostScript 3 driver from Martin Werthner, and I normally just going to delete everything. Let's close all these windows off. It's getting a bit busy. I'm just going to delete everything out the RAM drive there. Yeah, I normally have the printer set up. I normally have PostScript level 3 printer driver. It's normally set up as A4, and it's normally set up to print to file. And I normally print that to the RAM disk. So that's how I sort of boot up every day with that sort of all set like that. Opening up the print. Let's just reduce that so we can see a bit more. So I'm not going to print the whole document because it takes a while. I'll just print a selection of pages. So this was our file that went to press. So you can see that we've got the crop marks on there. So let's look at printing it. So I'm going to open the print dialog box there. Copies 1. I'm not going to do all pages. I'm just going to do the first 27 pages. Okay, so we can see that in the print setup, normally when you open the print dialog box on a new document, you just see that, but there's a little option to extend that, and that gives you some extra information, which is quite useful. You can so you can scale the page and change the aspect of it when it's printed. You can move the position on the paper, but usually you'd have it centered. But because we're doing a print run, basically we're going to do the bleed, so it's going to print everything that goes outside the page, and the settings are set as I usually have it for 3mm bleed. And then we've got printer's marks. I've just got crop marks. I never bother with registration marks. Most printers will want to put their own on anyway, so don't want them on. But crop marks are useful just to sort of show where the actual thing is going to be cut out, and it shows that you've got bleed. It sort of instantly is visible to the print shop that you know you've got bleed set there, and they're not trying to fit that info, that picture, onto a piece of paper. Obviously, you've already spec'd out what size it's going to be before you send them any files. You're going to tell them what page size it's all going to be. So that's ready for printing. But I'm just going to show you. I'm going to close that for a minute and show you another applet that I've created that's been running for quite a few years. And this is PDF Info. So what this applet does is when the document is being printed to the PostScript printer, it's going to basically inject a bit of PostScript code into that to do a few things for me. And I got so fed up of having to do this manually over on the PC and do this in Acrobat that I just thought I've got to figure out how to do this. So I sort of looked at the sort of extra PostScript code that sort of adds this in, and there's extra PostScript operators that are recognized by Distiller and Acrobat and I think GoScript and things, which know that when you're creating a PDF, this is extra information that you wouldn't normally get in PostScript. So you're telling it that this is the title of the document, the author, the subject, keywords, and that sort of injects that. So when that PDF is made, they're already in there. I don't have to keep adding it in every time. It also does some other little things. As I got using it, I thought, I've got an idea. What I can do is, instead of just once it's printed, and if I click on the PostScript printer there, you can see that I've got it normally set up to print to file, and it's called PS3/PS and sets as a PostScript file. That's printers that creates that. But what this applet does is it looks for when the printing is finished, and it looks to see whether it can rename the file. So if that PostScript file, that output, is actually on disk, in other words, it hasn't just gone straight to a printer and disappeared, or gone through network printers and has gone, it will actually rename that file for me. So it'll sit there in the RAM disk and it'll rename it to SIT3 insert CMYK/postscript. I can also ensure that it has the PS on, because when I copy that to a PC, obviously the mind map will say, oh, this is a PostScript file, and it doesn't want to stick on FF, FF5 as the extension. I can force overwrite. I can do it so I can, if that's not on, it will warn me that there's already a file called that, so you don't overwrite something that's important by mistake, but that'll just overwrite it with no questions. And then also I have there an option to set the actual file to PostScript, because there's a really annoying sort of quirk of Pling printers that you can print a number of documents in a row, and if you haven't clicked back on the icon on the icon bar, often the next one will end up as a data file, and it doesn't actually set the file to be PostScript again. So what this does, again, when it's finished, it just says, right, we're going to set it to PostScript, and we know it's PostScript, and the mind map and everything like that works. And then another sort of thing that I got fed up of doing by hand over and over again is when you create a PDF that's going off for printing on press, you obviously give these crop marks. Just zoom up a bit there. You give these sort of crop marks to say where the page is going to be cut out, but in the PDF spec, there's actually another couple of bounding boxes that define the trim area, which is obviously the paper area, and the bleed area. And most print shops will need that, because when they take these files and they sort of create the book, they're gonna sort of not print an A4 page at a time. They're going to take these A4 pages and impose them onto a sheet of AO paper, or SRAO, and do like 16 pages on one sheet of paper, and then the reverse side is the same. The right pages, 16, or the other 16 pages all match up in the right way. And obviously that's got to be done in a certain order, so everything backs up correctly. That page is then sort of folded up and then created into signatures, and they're often either glued or stitched and glued and bound together at the bookbinding stage. So actually telling the printers that where the page is going to be cut and where the bleed is quite important, and a lot of print shops will throw it back at you and say, like, this isn't right. But also in the PDF format, in there's different levels. I don't know if we got. Oh, I don't think we've got Nemo on tonight, have we? He would know all about this. There's certain sort of what's the word? Like regulations of levels of PDF files. And a certain sort of classification says that this particular number and passes all requirements to be a press ready job, and to get there it has to have the bleed and the trim area included. So again, looking at my little application and my applet, I've got a little tick box there that says insert trim and bleed, and what that does, every time there's a page printed, it will insert the correct PDF mark operator to say these are the bounding boxes. Okay, so that's all set up. I can print that and it jumps to the print dialog box, and I can, no, hold on. I've got a mistake there. I can see that the X and Y is going to be -6.98 and -6.98. So in other words, it's not going to fit. So I need to change the paper size on printers. And you'll see here I have quite a lot of paper sizes set up. You can see all sorts there, some for particular jobs. If like the cover needs a bigger size paper, I've got settings for cover sizes, and end papers have to be a different size. But in this case, we're just gonna Actually, I've gone past. We're on SRA4. And SRA4 is like A4, but it's got a little bit of extra space around to allow for crop marks and bleed and things. So if I OK that, you can see now that it's going to fit on. We've got it's going to be centered, but we've got 0.5 and 4.52, so that's going to fit, and we can just print. Yeah, so each of the big pictures have been loaded in each time, so it does take a while. And I say a full document does. I think I've got some specs somewhere. I'll tell you them in a moment. But it takes about. This is an RMX6 I'm running on. This is my old RMX6. I've just updated it, but I thought everything was set up on here, so it was easy to show you on that. And you can see it's finished printing. It's renamed it. It's put it in the RAM disk, and now what I do, I copy it across the network to the PC. Now I've got some folders set up here, and these are, you can see it's connecting to Landman 98 to the PC, and these are set folders. And if I can just show you now, I'm just going to copy that across to there, but I'm not going to sort of start the copying process yet. I just need to try and get the PC screen up so you can see it happening. Is that working? No. I'm using two different keyboards and two different mice, and there we go. Okay. So I want screen sharing again. Okay, hopefully you're seeing that now as a PC desktop. Does that look right? Can you see the desktop and other windows? Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to scroll that into view. So this here is Acrobat Distiller, and this is what I use. I'll just close that window. This is what I use to do the conversion from PostScript to PDF. I use Acrobat. It's a paid-for subscription. I've got the full lot, so it costs a whopping £50 a bloody month. They rip you off. But I use it a lot, and I sort of try and use it as much as I can at 50 quid a month. So obviously I've got Photoshop and InDesign and all the rest of the crap that I never use very much. Although Photoshop I do start to use it quite a bit now. It has some great features of AI to sort of fix things on pictures and stuff, and it's quite handy when you're sort of doing stuff for the website to sort of turn a picture into landscape, and it just sort of adds in a bit more background for you automatically. It's quite clever. So yeah, I'm gonna click yes there, and that's copying across the network. And Distiller, which is here, has got some folders set up that are waiting for seeing when a PostScript file lands in it. And as soon as it lands in, it checks it every few seconds and starts converting. So you can see now that's done the job. Yeah, we've got that. That's converted it. I've got the settings in the folder that's watching, the watched folder, to convert to basically press ready PDF. So I can see there, it tells me the ISO number and the PDF/X compliant report, which is like a pre-press one. And it's X1A:2001 checks. And basically it has to sort of have everything right for pre-press, for that to be passed. And what that actually means, so I'm just going to load it up. Now we're in, if you can see that's looking at Acrobat, and that's our 27 pages we've just converted to a PDF. And those settings will actually convert all the color space to CMYK. So that's all done for us. We don't have to start messing with CMYK colors under Riscos and not seeing them properly or knowing that they're converted properly. sometimes these look a bit strange. I don't know whether it's coming across over Zoom, but these look slightly sort of yellowy and a little bit out. But the printers that we sent this book to, they gave us the ITC profile, the color profile that they use for their press work. So this should all be by rights converted correctly for them. And you can see that we've got the sort of the green line is the trim and the blue is the bleed, and that's basically ready now to send off to the printers. But obviously we'd do a full book version, not just 27 pages. So again, if I view that as facing pages, you can just maybe scroll. Wrong keyboard. You can see that they're the sort of effects of the page spreads, but because we've got the crop marks and the sort of white space in between, it doesn't quite give that full look as we were seeing before, but that's going to be where the cutout. And that's a press ready PDF ready to send to the printers. So that's the main. Is everybody still there? Still awake? I'm sorry it's going on for a long time.
Yeah,
hopefully you're finding this reasonably interesting or not, maybe. So yeah, the ebook version is pretty much the same, except the go away. I shouldn't have done that. Should have left it open. The ebook version is pretty much the same, except the folder that I drop it into for Distiller has different settings. It knows that it's going to be RGB. It's going to downscale all the pictures because we don't need 300 DPI pictures for an ebook. All our ebooks are actually done as PDF files. We don't use EPUB or any other format because these sort of documents don't lend themselves to scaling and reflowing text at different point sizes that like novels do. So they're all done and sold as PDF versions. Don't know, get back to me screen sharing again. Back to the VNC. Is that showing the Viscose desktop again? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's just close that one off. So yeah, just gonna not really got much else to say now, coming to an end. So yeah, ebooks are pretty much the same. I didn't show you earlier that we've obviously got separate files for the cover. That's not the right one. So this was the cover layout that was done for the printers. And if I show you on the other camera, you can basically see that it's basically that. As a full page, single page image, basically. So again, when it comes to setting that up, you have to set a page size in Pling printers to actually make sure you've got all that sort of detail on, and it's all the correct size. You can see that there's hopefully you can see there's a fine blue layout line there, and that's basically what you see on the front of the cover. But when it goes to the press, when they make hardback covers, excuse me, they have a wraparound. So there's the camera there. So I don't know if you can see my hand there. As they get to there, there's a section of that image that wraps right over that page. And when you sort of feel under this end paper, you can see where you feel where it's stuck down. It's about an inch over there on there. So you can see that when you produce the artwork for the printers, they obviously need this extra space. And that's something that you've got to be aware of when you're taking your photos, when you're picking your photos. You might sort of think, oh, that's the perfect photo. And then you find that actually there's not enough sort of background space within your photo to actually wrap around that page, because all that is just lost. It's just sort of cut off and missed. You can see that the sort of the eye there is sort of right on the edge of the page. But so when it comes to creating the ebook, obviously you want the covers in there, and I like to do it so that the ebook has the cover image in the right place. So I actually end up my technique now for doing that is basically in that file that would be set for going to for the cover, I actually draw a frame here. See the green line there? That's basically an A4 page, and that's positioned to be what we're going to get in the front of the ebook. That's the first page of the ebook, and again there. And Ovation Pro is a very, very handy sort of system that you can define colours within your layout, and you can see I've got one there called cover A4 position, but you can set a colour to be non-printing. So basically you can see it on screen, but it doesn't actually ever get printed. So it's a great way of producing layout marks and references. So on that sort of first cover picture I showed you, there was a fine blue line. Again, they're set to not be printed, but viewed on screen. And you can also set the colours to be brought in from artwork. So if you've got a spot colour in artworks, you can define your setup in artworks and then set it to be a non-printing colour once it's in Ovation Pro. So I sort of defined the areas of where the front and back cover are going to be. I group everything together and make a single group of everything that's on that page. And then I just bring it into the document, and let's just zoom down. And I position it on the page so that green frame will actually sit in the A4 position of where I want it to be. And I know then that that's the correct position for the cover. The same applies to yeah, I've also got the end papers done the similar way. So we've got set up as a page spread for the end papers, and then basically it's the same document. They're just added onto the front of it, and at the very end we've just got the back cover and the page spread of the end papers ready to sort of print as a ebook version of the PDF. The other thing that I've got as again in development, it's not available on my site yet, is another applet that I've been working on. Let's just zoom up on that, and it's producing a weird color because I've done that on purpose, so I can easily see, but obviously that shouldn't look like that blue square there. But this is a frame. I think if I redraw that, it sometimes disappears because it's drawing a little square there, and it's eoring it sort of over the image there. But this actually is defining a URL. So again, this is injecting into the PostScript file a bit of code to actually say on this. Oh, that's not allowing me to move that. On this page, when this page gets printed, this region is defined as a clickable link. And it actually I've set them all to be invisible. So it's only when you sort of hover over this area that is going to actually be shown as a link on the ebook. But there's more work to do on this. It's a bit of I suppose a bit of a hack. I started when I first got the source code trying to write something to give me an extra tool down here for PDF regions and things like that. But I realized that to actually change the inner workings of Ovation Pro meant that the document format would have to change. If something was saved into that document, then that document format needs to be altered to store that. So I sort of set about it a different way. I actually thought, well, how can I do it without actually altering any of that? And to make it an applet that works, but without breaking forwards or backwards compatibility between documents and versions and all that, and be able to sort of pass this on to an older version and it's still open okay. And the way I did that is that this is basically just an empty frame. So let's just get some others. Scrolling through for some of the other links. Okay, so on every pattern page, there's actually a link over the yarn, so they can click to our website and buy the wool that we sell, and also click to buy it as a kit of wool. So that takes them to the yarn that he's using, and that takes him to buy a bundle of that yarn, enough to actually knit this garment up. So again, that's defined as a link. And what sort of makes this different than other systems that you might see, such as, I think Easy Writer, I think, or Tech Writer does it. What happens is, if you and in fact, I think like Distiller itself will recognize if you've got some text that says HTTP or www dot something, it sort of knows that that's a link. So it actually does a smart job of saying, oh, well, let's just highlight that and turn that into a clickable link. But in this situation, I don't want to write all that URL into the document. I just want to highlight a region and make it a link that will be able to be clicked. So what this actually is just an empty, a standard frame, standard text frame. Don't know if I've got any handy. Just bear with me. I need to go to. Yeah, I got thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to sort of make something that I can drop in and turn that frame into a link? And I got thinking about Ovation Pro, and we've seen it from things like Fireworks, that you can set Ovation Pro to recognize different file formats and pretend it's an image. So how am I going here? I normally have things like this all pinned to me pinboard, but I've turned everything off the pinboard to right. So I have a folder that's lots and lots of useful web links and things as I create them. Yarn groups, that goes directly to the type of yarn. And what that is actually a URL link. So from a browser, you save it as a link, and which actually is just a text file, isn't it? It's just a text file with the URL, but set to a particular file type. And the applet, what it does, it recognizes that URL file and says, all right, I'm not going to treat this as a graphic. It thinks it's a graphic, so it handles it as a graphic. If I now bring that document to the top, you can see that down in the info bar, it actually thinks it's a picture frame. So it's actually expecting this to be a picture, but the applet says, right, forget that it's a picture. When we display that picture on screen, just draw a red box. And that's really temporary, because really what it should do is draw the box at the same size as the frame. But I've never quite understood that bit of code yet, and I've not gone back to it for a long time. When I first started, it was very, very confusing, and I thought, I can't seem to get the size of the frame that easily when you're in the depths of the sort of objects at the sort of code level. But there is a way, I think, but I'm just not got back to it. But it draws that just so I know something's loaded in there. So basically what that is a text, is a frame that's a graphic that I will turn off the background. So there's nothing showing. When it prints on screen, it just prints a red dot, but it's set that when it starts printing that page, if we happen to be printing to a PostScript printer, then it says, okay, that image, read the data that we're storing in the document, which is really just a text string of the URL, wrap that up in all the code that we need to say to a PDF that this is actually a clickable link. And basically there's a bit of mathematics that defines that region, converts it into PostScript points, says this is where it is on the page, and this is the region that's now going to be a clickable link. So that's all it is. It's a very sort of hodgepodge, sort of hacky way of doing it, but it works, and it needs to be refined a bit more yet. And then the way I handle it, so I know where they are, I set a color, a frame color, just a small border around the frame. And again, that's set in a particular color, which is PDF URL, which is set to non-print. So it doesn't actually show up at all. None of this sort of shows up. It just injects a bit of PostScript code to say this is a link. So that's something that I've been using for quite some time, but it does need a bit of refining. What at the moment, although I can open that window, I can actually launch that. I can send that to the browser. I should be able to update it, but that bit's not working yet. I've got to try and figure out. I started to build a new URL file, but I can't seem to sort of inject it back into Ovation Pro that easily. But I've thought of some other ways I can get back to that. So that's giving us like website links, and I'm currently on a system very, very similar to that, that's going to do a similar thing but for page links. So you can say you can define a region, such as in your contents page, and you can click it and it'll take you to page 32 or whatever you set it to. So I'm part way through that. I've actually got it where that's done in two parts, really. You actually first define a destination, sort of the page destination, and you set that first. And that's basically a bookmark, an Ovation Pro bookmark that's sort of stored in the document. And then again, it's going to have a region that, as it gets printed, it's going to say this region relates to that destination. And you can sort of create clickable links to different pages. I've had to try and think about that, because you can't just sort of give it the page number. You can't just say, oh, this is going to page 32, because what happens if you don't print page 32? You're going to have that issue where that actually isn't in that document. Big documents, I don't do it so much now. I tend to print them all in one big file. But yeah, in the past, I would actually print sections. I'd print them in pages of 16 at a time. And again, if you're sort of trying to say, well, this is a destination that's not in this file, it's going to get a bit confused. So it allows you to define the places where they're going to link to, all in, say, one file, and set that up. And then when they're all merged together, it will work. And it's not actually taking a page number, because they're all actually going to start from page one, all the separate sections. But it actually is a sort of defined name in the PostScript. So that sort of it works. But that's still in. Can't get rid of that. I've got a bar across the top now of me Zoom window that's sort of getting in the way. So yeah, I can do a quick print of that. Let's do, what page is that on? 29. Actually, I think there's, so let's print 29 to 39. Well, I've still got, I've not got this at A4 actually. I've just printed it on SRA4, but never mind. Oh yeah, and the other thing that the PDF info applet does is it allows you to set up bookmarks, and bookmarks are the things that you see in Acrobat to sort of again click on, but not just on the page. These are sort of things in the sidebar. So again, I've got a system where I can define. I don't know. Oh, there we go. It's gone now. Yeah, it's a bit hard on on this smaller screen. I'm used to a little bit more desktop space. Again, what this does is set a bookmark, an Ovation Pro bookmark in the document. And again, that's just actually in this little tiny purple empty frame off page. And it's actually PDF bookmark number 1. It has a reference of the word contents, and I can sort of move the character somewhere else and remove it, or I can just view them. And again, I've got these set actually off the page because there is an issue with bookmarks in Ovation Pro, and I do use them a lot. I was going to talk about that, but I've not had a chance. But if they're in the text, you could sort of put the bookmark there. But what tends to happen is if you cut and paste that text, it decides that you've cut the text away, so the bookmark disappears. Bookmarks are hidden little markers within Ovation Pro's text, basically. So these sort of define what page, again, in that same way, it has a reference to that page. And then once it appears in the PDF, it sort of just makes a bookmark to it. So we're going to say this is going to use pattern downloads. I also have one set up for actual eBooks, but this one will do. And that's just that one. Okay, if I share now, screen 2. Oops, did I use the right key sequence? Oh, I must have stopped distiller there. There we go. So that's the ebook now. Just a few pages, but you can see if I hover over that, hopefully you can see the carrot change that's now the hot link. Shut up, I don't want to set Adobe like to flash lots of things up when you restart their apps. Oh, they only do 2 pages? Must have done. Anyway, you can see. So if I go into edit the page, add or edit a link, you can see that region is highlighted there as a clickable link. And you could actually set them up to be, I do invisible, but you could do visible, and you can set the color. So, you know, often you'd see like underlines or blue underlines in documents, but I think it looks quite annoying really when you're trying to read a book and there's lots of things highlighted in blue marks and things. So I'll close that off now. I've just upgraded to a newer version of Acrobat now. I really hate it. Everything's moved, everything's different. A lot of me plugins I used to use don't now work, so I might have to go back to the 32-bit version that worked a lot better. So that's basically how the ebooks are created. And I can actually open the ebook. This is the proper ebook, so you can see that's the cover. Again, the page spread. This is at A4, so actually, if we look at it as a 2-page spread, you can actually see the the cover, the page spread there of the back of the cover, and then the rest of the document. So there we are, and all these are actually lower. These are all scaled down to, I think it's 120 dpi instead of the 300 that would go for printing. And again, like I say, they're all in RGB because that's what people want if they're looking on an iPad or whatever, or some other device. There's apps specifically for knitting patterns that'll take a PDF, and you can do a sort of highlight of where you're up to, where you're up to in the knitting, and you can move a marker around on screen. So a lot of people use them. So again, they need to be pretty straightforward, standard PDFs with nothing too special, and that's about it, really. I can.
Is that a good place to start?
I think so. Is it? I don't know what time.
Before we get thrown out the pub here.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Best have that. Yeah. I've just got a few other little bits of applets I can talk about, but
that felt like a nice place.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry if that's been a bit boring and dragging on for everybody.
No.
I do hope everybody's still awake and we're still here.
No, I thought Bruce summed it up nicely. A marvelous blend of publishing knowledge and Ristos knowledge.
Yeah, so well done. I need to switch back to my other camera, don't I? Yeah.
It was great. It was great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too dull. Let me just close that PNC window down a bit.
There's a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if you...
Okay, I've not seen any of the chat. I've not had a chance. Does someone want to run through, or do I have to scroll all the way through?
Well, I've got a question. Why do you use Acrobat Distiller rather than PS2 PDF?
Because it's got a lot more features, basically. It'll work with color profiles that the printers send us. It's a professional system, so I know that what I'm sending to a print shop is going to work properly. And it's going to be right for what they're used to. It has a lot of extra features. Again, because it's coupled with Acrobat, which is the sort of paid for full pro version that I have. It gives you a lot of pre-flight features, which I don't know if that's a term anybody knows. That's like basically before you print the file, you would run a load of tests on it, and it'll throw up things like if any images are less than 300 dpi, if there's any hairline lines that aren't going to print that you think they're going to print. So it gives you basically a bit of a check on things, which like Ghostscript doesn't sort of have the same sort of features. And also, like I say, color profiles and stuff, you get given them from the print shop, and they say, this is what we use to convert our press info to get it right for our presses. And they're all sort of calibrated differently, and certainly like digital presses are all sort of calibrated with different presses, have different ICC profiles and things. So you just want to be working with something that sort of takes out that sort of element of surprise, and then throwing it back and saying, oh, this isn't quite right. I mean, you always get that. I mean, we often get that with covers. Every different printers will say, oh, I need a bit more wrap round, or want it slightly different, or so you tend to always have to sort of work with what they want and adjust it accordingly. And it also depends on the project as well. I mean, if you're just doing something like a small booklet type book like that, you could send it in RGB, and they can print it, and usually they have systems set up that it'll produce a reasonable copy, and they're happy. Some printers won't touch if it's not CMYK. Others are happy to say, well, we'll use our setup and just print, we can give you a proof and see what you think. And but yeah, some places just if it doesn't conform to all the all the regulations of a pre-press PDF file. They just chuck it back and say, "Oh, we don't want to know." So some printers are a lot more helpful.
Yes, I discovered that when producing CDs. There was a very helpful company that would do the pre-flight check. But I have now got Adobe Professional. I mean, it cost a couple of £100, I think, but you know, it's quite expensive. But I have got it, so you know, I could use it, but I haven't quite got round to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not essential. I think sort of like the Ghostscript. I'm not sure again whether the Riscos version is probably a little bit old now. There's been newer PC versions. But you know, it does offer a lot of those features, and you know, you get it at no cost at all. I've been using Acrobat and Distiller, which sort of come together for many years, because it's what I used to use often at the print firm. We would often, you know, although we were Riscos based and everything we produced was sort of on Riscos, we did get given files on PC formats, and it would usually be wrong and laid out incorrectly. There's lots of plug-in tools for Acrobat, so you can do imposition. You can take a document and you can swap the page ordering around to get it to sort of do it as a booklet. You can add creep and tick marks and crop marks and things like that. So you can do all those features within it and actually act it as an imposition software. And it's extremely powerful when you get that, because you basically get a complete editor. So you take a document and completely rearrange it, and you can do like facing pages or whatever and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've just used it for a long time, but other systems are available, as they say. What else have we got? Is there anything?
Right. On that note, we've been given a quarter of an hour till we've got to be out of this room.
Okay.
So just want to say again, thank you very much, Gavin. That was excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure people will carry on chatting online, but
okay, well, he's going to stay.
Stop on the recording now, so we'll all become informal from now on.
Okay.
Thank you again. That was excellent.
Okay.